quiet archive record. Tonight, we're stepping into a slow unfolding. Settle in, let the outside world dissolve, and gently descend into tonight's world. The ocean hides more than any desert or forest. It hides distance, motion, and detail. It also hides mistakes. A bright point can be a star. A fast track can be a sensor artifact. A story can become a legend. Yet some cases near the sea keep returning in public records, especially where military sensors are dense. This account stays cautious. It separates direct observation from interpretation, and it treats the idea of an underwater base as a claim that needs strong proof. We look at the 2004 Nimitz encounters, the 2013 Aguadilla infrared video, repeated East Coast training range reports, and the 1967 Shag Harbour incident, along with the bias created when the best radars and cameras are pointed at the same places. Tonight, we explore the strongest evidence for alien bases in the ocean. Night over water can feel like a blank page, a flat line, a slow, restless surface, and beneath it, a depth that does not behave like air. Light fades fast. Radio does not travel far. Sound bends. Pressure rises. Even today, large parts of the seabed are mapped in rough strokes, not in close detail. When people say the ocean is unexplored, they do not mean it is untouched. They mean that the ocean resists full, continuous observation. It allows a great deal to happen without being seen. That simple fact is the first fuel for the underwater base idea. If a person wanted to hide something, the ocean would be tempting. If a nation wanted to test something, the ocean would be useful. If an unknown intelligence wanted privacy, the ocean would be logical. Logic, though, is not evidence. A good hiding place does not prove a hidden thing. So the core question is not whether the ocean could hide a base. The question is, what public evidence, if any, suggests that something unusual uses the sea in a way that is hard to explain? To keep this careful, it helps to define what counts as evidence in the open record. There are observations by trained witnesses like pilots, sailors, radar operators, and Coast Guard crews. There are sensor records like radar tracks, infrared video, and sometimes acoustic data. There are official documents like briefings, reports, and testimony under oath. And there are rumors, leaks, and anonymous stories. These can be interesting, but without a chain of custody, they cannot carry a strong conclusion. A second important idea is bias. Not personal bias, though that exists. This is observation bias. We do not watch the whole planet equally. We watch certain places a lot. The sea near military training ranges is watched constantly. Coastal approaches are watched. Carrier groups are watched. Border zones are watched. The open ocean, far from everything, is watched much less. This matters because patterns can be real and still be shaped by where the sensors are. If most of your best sensors are near fleets, then many of your unknowns will be detected near fleets. That does not prove the fleets are the source. It proves the fleets are the observer. So when the ocean base idea points to hotspots, we must ask two questions at once. What happened? And why was it recorded there? With that in mind, we can step into the cases that are most often used to argue that something unusual might be operating near, over, or even within the sea. The first is the modern anchor case, the 2004 Nimitz encounters. In late 2004, during training operations off Southern California, radar operators associated with the USS Princeton and other ships reported unusual contacts. Accounts describe objects appearing at altitude, dropping quickly, and behaving in ways that did not match expected aircraft. Radar can lie. It can show ghosts. It can be fooled by atmospheric layers. It can be fooled by interference. It can be fooled by software filters. But the reported contacts were not just a single blip. They were repeated. They persisted, and they were significant enough that pilots were directed to investigate. One of the best-known pilot accounts involves Commander David Fravor. In his description, his aircraft arrived at a location and found a strange scene on the ocean surface. A patch of white water, an area of churning, like a boil, as if something large were just beneath the surface. Above that, he reported seeing an object, white, smooth, no wings, no tail, no visible exhaust. He described it moving in a way that seemed responsive to the jet and then accelerating away. The ocean detail is what matters for this episode. If the pilots truly saw a disturbance consistent with something under the water, then the case becomes more than a story of a strange object in the sky. It becomes a story of possible interaction with the sea. But we must be honest about limits. The water disturbance is mostly testimony. It is not supported by a public frame from a sea surface camera that clearly shows the disturbance and its cause. Testimony can be sincere and accurate, but it is not the same as measurement. Also, the sea can churn for mundane reasons. Currents can collide. Marine animals can gather. A submerged object can create foam. A wake from something else can spread. So the careful conclusion is not that Nimitz proves an underwater base. The careful conclusion is that Nimitz includes a notable ocean surface detail, and it sits inside a sensor-rich environment where multiple people reported something unknown. Another important part of Nimitz is the later release of infrared video, recorded by a targeting pod. In the public clips, the object is a bright shape on a dark background. It moves relative to the frame. It is hard to see detail. The clip alone is ambiguous. Infrared video is not a normal camera. It is a picture of heat and contrast. Settings can invert brightness. Zoom changes can alter apparent speed. Tracking can introduce movement. And without range data, size and velocity can be misread. So the strongest part of Nimitz for public discussion is the combined pattern. Multiple witnesses, multiple sensors, multiple encounters, and an ocean context. Still, even if we treat Nimitz as one of the strongest modern cases, it does not provide what an underwater base claim would need. No sonar map, no undersea structure, no recovered material in public record, no released track that shows a clear dive into the sea with confirmed range and angle. So Nimitz is evidence of unknown activity at most. It is not evidence of a base. From the Pacific, we can move to a case that is widely shared because it appears, to many eyes, to show an object entering the water. The 2013 Aguadilla incident. In 2013, a US Customs and Border Protection aircraft recorded infrared video near Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. The clip became famous because the object seems to travel along the coast, move out over the ocean, and then appear to pass into the water with no dramatic splash. To some viewers, this looks like a craft transitioning from air to sea. If true, it would be a strong public hint for USO-like behavior. But Aguadilla is also a lesson in how hard interpretation can be. The camera is an infrared system. The angle is oblique. The distance is uncertain. The camera is moving. The tracking box can mislead. Contrast settings shift. A distant object over water can be hard to range. Analysts have argued about whether the object is something mundane, like a balloon or bird, and whether the apparent split into two objects is a camera artifact or a real event. Others argue the speed and behavior do not fit a balloon. In a careful, evidence-based stance, we can say this. The video is real. It shows an object the crew did not identify in the moment. It shows a track that includes movement over water. It includes a segment that looks, in the thermal view, like the object passes into or very near the surface. But the clip alone cannot prove underwater entry. A camera losing contrast near the horizon can make an object seem to merge with the sea. A change in angle can hide the object behind a wave line. A distant object can be mislocated. So Aguadilla remains suggestive, not decisive. It strengthens the ocean theme. It does not confirm a base. The next ingredient in the ocean-based narrative is not one single case, but a cluster. Recurring reports from Navy pilots on the US East Coast. In the 2010s, Navy aviators described frequent unknown objects during training near the Atlantic. The reports include objects seen hovering, moving at speed, and appearing at certain altitudes. Some accounts mention objects near the ocean surface. Some mention objects that seem to disappear. Disappear is a slippery word. It can mean the object left the camera frame. It can mean it entered cloud. It can mean the sensor lost lock. It can mean a light turned off. It can mean the observer looked away. Or it can mean a true rapid departure. In popular retellings, disappearance near water becomes a dive. The mind makes a clean story. Air to sea, sea to hidden base. But the careful approach separates two claims. An object was present, and an object entered the ocean. Those are different. Publicly, much of the supporting material is limited. There are reports and testimony, but not always full data releases. Military training ranges are complex. There are drones, there are balloons, there are classified programs. There are also genuine anomalies that remain unresolved. So East Coast reports add weight to the idea that unknowns appear in maritime training contexts. They do not, by themselves, reveal an underwater facility. If we step back further, we find older cases that are often cited because they involved multiple witnesses and official response. The 1967 Shag Harbour incident. In 1967, near Shag Harbour, Nova Scotia, witnesses reported seeing a strange object with lights moving low over the water. It was described as descending toward the sea. Authorities responded as if a plane had crashed. Searches were conducted. The case is compelling because it was not just one person calling a radio show. It involved reports, attention, and a documented response. But in a careful reading, Shag Harbour does not provide physical proof of an unknown craft or a base. No publicly confirmed wreckage, no released material, no clear recovered object. So Shag Harbour fits the pattern of ocean-linked reports, but it remains an unsolved story rather than a demonstrated fact. Now we move into a category that often powers the ocean base idea more than any single video: sailor and submarine folklore. Stories of fast underwater objects, unusual sonar tracks, lights below the surface, objects pacing submarines, strange wakes, strange sounds. These stories may be real experiences. Sailors encounter things that civilians never see. Submarine crews live in a world of sound and inference. Yet this category is hard to evaluate publicly for one main reason. Submarine operations are secret. Sonar performance is classified. Locations are sensitive. Even when something unusual happens, the details may never enter the open record. So in a public, evidence-based approach, These stories must be treated as claims. They can be meaningful. They can indicate that anomalies have been noticed for decades, but without data, they cannot settle the question. At this point, it can help to ask why the ocean base idea sticks so strongly in the human mind. The ocean is a boundary, air above, water below. Humans dominate the air. We are limited underwater. We can send ships. We can send submarines. We can send sonar. We can send robots. But we cannot see far. We cannot move easily. We cannot live there without support. So if an unknown technology could move between air and sea with ease, it would feel like a rule-breaking advantage. This is where one specific claim becomes central. No splash. A normal object entering water at speed creates effects. Spray, noise, a wake, foam, sometimes heat. So when people say an object entered the ocean with no splash, the claim carries emotional weight. But even here, caution is needed. A distant view may not reveal a splash. A camera angle may hide it. Low light may erase it. Small objects may create minimal disturbance. And sometimes, the object may not have entered at all. So the responsible position is to treat no splash as a clue, only if it is supported by good range data and multiple sensors. Now we can look at another way the ocean base idea is built. Hotspots. People cite Southern California waters, the Atlantic training ranges, Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, parts of the Pacific. The logic is simple. If something wanted to hide underwater, it might choose deep water. It might choose areas near trenches or steep seafloor. It might choose places far from casual fishing. It might choose places where naval activity provides cover. This logic is not impossible. But again, logic is not proof. A story can be logical and still be wrong. Evidence requires direct observation of the hidden thing. In the public record, that direct observation is missing. So what can we responsibly say is the strongest evidence in public? We can say that many credible observers have reported unknown objects in maritime contexts. We can say that some of the most discussed modern cases happened over water. We can say that some tracks appear to end near the ocean. We can say that some reports include claims of water disturbance or possible submergence. We cannot say that any of this confirms an alien base. We also cannot say, from public data alone, that there is definitely nothing unusual happening. Some cases remain unresolved, and the ocean is a place where unresolved is common. So the most useful question becomes, what evidence would be needed for the base claim to move from speculation to something solid? If someone claimed there was an underwater facility of non-human origin, what would count? High-resolution imagery of a structure, not a blurry blob, not a single frame, clear images with scale, multiple independent sonar maps that match, not one anonymous chart, maps from separate systems, separate groups, a verified physical sample, a piece of material recovered, documented and analyzed in public, an official data release showing a clear transition, an object tracked in air, then into water, then underwater, with confirmed range and speed, or a recovered device with clear non-human features. Without at least one of those categories, the base idea remains an interpretation, and interpretations can be shaped by fear, hope, and storytelling. The ocean invites storytelling because it is dark and deep and old. It holds wrecks. It holds lost things. It holds the remains of storms. It holds the unknown. When the mind meets unknown, it builds a shape. Sometimes the shape is true. Sometimes it is not. It can also help to remember that the sea is not empty of human secrecy. Navies test vehicles, they test drones, they test decoys, they test sonar countermeasures, they test new sensors. Some of what people see may be classified human technology. This is not an excuse to dismiss all anomalies. It is a reminder that in maritime military zones, unknown does not automatically mean alien. Another caution is the nature of sensor data. Modern sensors are powerful, but they also create new kinds of confusion. A radar can detect things that the eye cannot. It can also misclassify. An infrared camera can show heat patterns. It can also be fooled by atmospheric layering and background temperature. A tracking system can stabilize a target. It can also introduce apparent motion. If you want strong evidence, you need multiple sensors agreeing. You need range, you need context, you need calibration, and you need transparency. Public discussion often lacks that. So the strongest public evidence for the ocean base idea is not a photograph of a base. It is a pattern of reports clustered around water. It is a set of cases where unknown objects appear in maritime contexts. It is the repeated appearance of the ocean as stage, and it is the psychological pull of the sea as a perfect hiding place. If we take the patterns seriously but stay cautious, a reasonable summary might sound like this. There are credible, unresolved reports of unknown objects near the ocean. Some of these reports come from trained military observers. Some include sensor data. A few include hints, through testimony or video interpretation, that objects may interact with the sea surface. But the public evidence does not meet the burden required to claim an underwater base. The ocean base claim remains speculation, a compelling story built from real unknowns and a vast environment that hides detail. And yet, the story persists because the ocean keeps offering the same thing: uncertainty, silence, depth, a place where a light can appear, a place where a track can end, a place where answers can slip away. In the years ahead, sensors will improve, satellites will watch more, radars will sharpen, drones will map, sonar will spread. As that happens, more anomalies will be detected. Some will be explained, some will remain unresolved. And because so much observation is centered near coasts and fleets, the ocean will remain part of the pattern. The responsible response is not to announce certainty, not to declare a base, not to declare nothing, but to improve method, better reporting, better data sharing, better calibration, better peer review. Until then, the strongest honest statement is modest. There is no public proof of an alien base under the ocean. There are, however, credible ocean-linked anomalies that remain unexplained. And the ocean, by its nature, keeps the door open for stories that feel possible. In the quiet dark, the mind can always place a hidden light, a submerged doorway, a distant station, a secret under the waves. But to move from story to fact, the sea would need to give up something clear: a map, a structure, a sample, a track, a piece of the unknown that can be held in daylight. Until that day, the ocean base idea remains what it has always been: a strong image, a persistent question, and a wide, deep silence. Before we drift further, it helps to slow down and ask what the ocean can do to perception. Over land, the eye has anchors: trees, buildings, roads, cloud shadows. Over water, especially open water, those anchors fall away. A point of light can look closer than it is. A moving object can seem to accelerate when it is only changing direction. A low cloud bank can hide a horizon and erase scale. Then there is the instrument layer. Radar is powerful, but it is not magic. It sends energy, listens for return, and tries to infer range and speed. The inference can be clean. It can also be messy. Temperature layers in the air can bend signals. Sea clutter can create returns. Ducting can carry radar far beyond normal range. Software can merge tracks or split them. A momentary spike can become a ghost target. Infrared systems bring their own complications. A thermal image is not a photo. It is a contrast map. The same object can appear bright in one mode and dark in another. The background matters. The sky can be colder than the sea. The sea can be colder than the sky. Clouds can be warmer than both. And the ocean itself changes constantly. Waves rise and fall. Spray cools. Sunlight heats. Currents shift. So when a clip shows an object near the horizon and the object seems to merge with water, it may be because the object truly entered the sea. It may also be because the sensor lost contrast at the boundary between air and water. This is why strong claims about air-to-sea transitions need more than a single view. They need range, they need angles, they need time, they need more than one sensor. Still, even with these cautions, some patterns remain stubborn. Many of the most discussed UAP events occur near water. Why? One explanation is that objects, whatever they are, prefer the ocean. Another is that the ocean is where militaries concentrate high-performance sensors and training. A third is that the ocean provides a clean background that makes small objects easier to detect on radar. And a fourth is that the ocean is a place where normal human activity is sparse, so any anomaly feels more dramatic. The truth may be a mix. Now, return to Nimitz with these ideas in mind. In Nimitz, the ocean detail is not just a rumor. It is tied to direct pilot testimony, and it is repeated by more than one witness in different forms. A disturbance, white water, a patch of sea that looked wrong. If we take that detail seriously, we can list ordinary explanations first. A whale or pod of whales surfacing and rolling, a school of fish driving prey upward, a break in internal waveline, a localized wind shift, a submerged object moving at speed, or a training device like a flare or buoy that created foam. But the pilots described the disturbance as if something were just below the surface, and as if the object above it was connected to it. Connection is a strong word. It implies cause. So the careful position is softer. The pilots saw both an aerial object and an unusual patch of ocean. Whether they were linked is not confirmed by public data. Even with that softness, it is easy to see why the ocean base idea attaches itself to Nimitz. If an unknown object is near a patch of disturbed water, the mind offers a simple picture. Something came up. Something went down. Something is hiding below. But to move from picture to proof, we would need data from below. Sonar, acoustic signatures, subsurface tracks, a recovered device. The public record does not include that, so the Nimitz case remains a strong unknown, but it does not cross the threshold into underwater infrastructure. Now consider Aguadilla again, but this time with a more methodical lens. Aguadilla is popular because it seems to show a smooth transition into water, and because it comes from an official platform, not a random phone. But the key question is range. How far is the object? If the object is closer than assumed, then speed estimates can change. If the object is farther than assumed, the object could be large and slow. If the object is near the coastline and the camera is moving, parallax can create the appearance of lateral speed. In addition, Infrared systems can show a target over water in ways that are counterintuitive. A small, cool object can show bright if the mode is inverted. A warm background can swallow a small contrast. If a target passes into a region where the sea is the same thermal tone as the target, it can appear to vanish without physical entry. So a careful statement about Aguadilla might be, it is one of the strongest publicly available clips that keeps the ocean in the story. It suggests something moved out over water. It hints, but does not prove, an air-to-sea transition. It does not prove a base. Now look at the East Coast reports as a pattern. If an unknown object is seen repeatedly in the same training corridor, there are several possibilities. It could be a stable misidentification, like a certain kind of balloon or drone that appears in the same place. It could be a classified program being flown near training. It could be a foreign surveillance platform, or it could be something truly unknown. The ocean base idea tends to leap to the last option. It also tends to assume the object uses the sea as cover. But again, the strongest public evidence is not undersea. It is aerial and sensor-linked. So, if we want to understand why the base claim remains popular, we have to understand the difference between unknown craft and unknown base. An unknown craft could appear, vanish, and never need a local base. It could be launched from far away. It could be in orbit. It could be a drone from a ship. It could be a one-off. A base is different. A base is a long-term footprint. Even underwater, a base would have signatures: heat, waste, movement of materials, noise, changes to the seafloor, patterns in sonar. If such a base existed, and if it were active at scale, it is reasonable to think that some trace would be measurable. Yet in the public record, we do not have a clear trace. That does not prove the base is not there. It means we do not have public evidence. Now, return to Shag Harbour with the same discipline. A lighted object reported over water, a descent, an official response, a search. No confirmed wreckage. Shag Harbour fits the shape of an incident that could be interpreted as a craft entering the sea. But the evidence is still human observation, an aftermath response. It is not undersea measurement. If a base existed near Nova Scotia, a modern claim would require sonar mapping, repeated detections, or physical evidence. Shag Harbour alone does not provide it. Now step into the part of the topic that often lives in the shadows: submarine stories, sonar anomalies, fast movers. The ocean is a world of sound. Underwater, sound travels far. Sonar can detect objects and shapes at distance, but sonar interpretation is not trivial. It depends on water conditions. It depends on the seabed. It depends on noise. It depends on the system and the training of the operator. It is possible for sonar to produce false tracks. It is possible for marine life to mimic a moving contact. It is possible for multiple reflections to create a ghost. It is also possible for unusual things to happen at sea that have nothing to do with aliens. A foreign submarine, a secret drone, a new kind of decoy, a test of countermeasures. This is why the public must be careful with anonymous sonar tales. The ocean is full of secrets, and many of them are human. So what remains after we remove the weak claims is simple. The strongest public material does not show a base. It shows repeated, credible unknowns in maritime settings, mostly where military sensors and observers are concentrated. That matters because it explains both why the ocean keeps appearing in the story and why the story keeps staying incomplete. A radar track can end near water. a thermal clip can lose contrast at the horizon. A light can vanish behind cloud or into the distance. And once the track ends, the ocean becomes the default hiding place in the mind. If the goal is to test the base claim rather than repeat it, the method has to be practical. You would need repeat observation in the same regions, release of enough metadata for independent analysis, and undersea mapping where feasible. A real underwater facility should leave measurable signatures over time, repeatable tracks, consistent locations, seabed anomalies, unusual heat or chemistry, or persistent acoustic patterns. Publicly, those signatures are not demonstrated. That is why the base claim stays in the category of speculation. To make this more concrete, it helps to add one more modern fleet-linked example that is often cited in ocean-based conversations. Around 2019, there were widely discussed Navy shipboard observations in which unidentified lights or objects were recorded over water. Some public retellings describe a case where a target was tracked and then a splash or water disturbance was reported, leading to the idea that the object entered the sea. What the public can responsibly say is limited. There are clips and accounts tied to shipboard cameras, and there are descriptions of sensor detections, but the complete package of range, sensor logs, and subsurface tracking is not available in a way that resolves the question. So the outcome is the same as the earlier cases. The events keep the idea of water interaction on the table, but they do not provide public proof of a base. This brings us back to the most important divider in the entire topic. An unknown object is not the same as an unknown base. A base is a long-term footprint. In public evidence, that footprint is not shown. Some assumptions may be right. Many will be wrong. A good way to stay grounded is to place every claim into one of three bins. Bin 1, directly observed with public documentation. Bin 2, reported by credible witnesses but without full public data. Bin 3, rumor, anonymous claim, or unverified clip. The base claim itself is usually bin 3. The best cases, like Nimitz and Aguadilla, are closer to bin 2, with some elements of bin 1. That is why they matter. They are not just stories. They are tied to official platforms and official attention. Now, consider a smaller and quieter kind of evidence. Patterns in where objects are reported. If objects are reported near aircraft carriers, one explanation is that the carriers are targets of surveillance by unknown craft. Another explanation is that the carriers are simply where observers are. A carrier group puts dozens of aircraft in the air. It puts radar and infrared in constant use. It puts trained eyes on the horizon. It creates the conditions where unknowns will be noticed. This means that even a modest number of unusual events can look like a hotspot, because the detection rate is high. Now think about how the ocean base idea treats these hotspots. It often assumes the hotspot is a location of origin, but the hotspot may be a location of observation. The difference is crucial. If we want to test origin, we would need to track unknowns beyond the hotspot. Do they always arrive from the same direction? Do they always depart toward the same region? Do they appear at consistent depths on sonar? Do they cluster near certain seafloor features? Do they show repeatable timing? Public data rarely provides these answers. Now pause and consider the ocean itself as a stage for misidentification. At night, a ship's light can be mistaken for a hovering object. A bright star near the horizon can appear to pace an aircraft. A planet can seem to move when the observer moves. A distant aircraft can appear to stop when it turns toward the observer. A flare can drift, a balloon can glow, a drone can be hard to see, and the sea can create mirages. Temperature gradients can bend light. A distant ship can appear lifted. A light can appear detached from its source. So when we look at ocean-linked reports, we should ask, was the sky clear? Were there stars? Was there a known ship? Were there fishing fleets? Were there flares? Were there exercises? Were there balloons? In some cases, these questions can explain an event. In others, they do not. That is where the true unknowns live. Now, for a moment, return to the phrase USO, unidentified submerged object. This phrase implies something under the surface, but in many public discussions, the only evidence of a USO is an object that disappeared near water. This is not enough. A real USO claim should include one of these: a sonar track, a wake, bubbles, a visible entry, a visible exit, or consistent detection underwater across time. Publicly, we have very little of that. So the ocean base idea is built more from the absence of tracking than from the presence of undersea data. The object vanished. The sea is deep. Therefore, it went into the sea. Therefore, it could be based there. This chain is emotionally satisfying, but each step is an assumption. To make it less emotional and more scientific, we can ask, what is the simplest explanation that fits the data? Sometimes the simplest explanation is mundane. A balloon, a drone, a camera artifact. Sometimes the simplest explanation is still unknown because the data is incomplete. That is the uncomfortable truth about many UAP cases. They may remain unresolved, not because the answer is exotic, but because the record is thin. Now think about what a future strong case would look like. Imagine a coastal surveillance aircraft with infrared and radar. Imagine a ship with advanced radar. Imagine an underwater sonar array. Imagine that all three detect the same target. The radar tracks it in air. The infrared sees it. Then the target moves into the sea. The infrared shows a clear entry with visible disturbance. The ship radar continues to track for a short moment. Then the sonar array detects a fast-moving object underwater. The track continues. It moves toward a specific seafloor region. It stops. Then, later, it leaves. And all of this is recorded with timestamps and range. If such a case existed and was released publicly, it would shift the discussion. It still might not prove an alien base, but it would provide real evidence of air to sea transition. From there, the next step would be undersea mapping of the region, high-resolution sonar, multiple passes, independent teams. If a structure existed, it might be found. If nothing existed, the base claim would weaken. That is what evidence looks like. Until then, we have a quieter reality. We have stories. We have partial data. We have a few official clips. We have testimony. And we have an ocean that is hard to watch. Now, some listeners may ask, is it possible that a base could exist without leaving signatures? It is possible in the abstract. A very small facility could have minimal output. A deep facility could hide heat. A mobile facility could avoid leaving a fixed footprint. A facility could be built into a natural structure. But as we increase the cleverness of the facility, we also increase the speculation. The more a claim relies on unseen mechanisms, the less it is anchored to evidence. That does not make it false. It makes it less testable. And in careful work, testability matters. Now let the mind return to the ocean itself. The ocean is not only a hiding place, it is also a mirror. It reflects the sky. It reflects lights. It reflects our fears. It reflects our desire for mystery. When a light appears over water and then it is gone, it can feel like the sea swallowed it. The feeling is powerful. And because the sea is so large, the feeling can become a story, a base, a doorway, a hidden world. Yet the strongest and most honest answer is still restrained. We do not have public proof of an underwater base. We have public evidence that some unknowns occur in maritime contexts. We have strong reasons to think that observation bias shapes the pattern. And we have a clear list of what would be needed to move beyond speculation. So as we settle deeper, let the conclusion be gentle. Let it be slow. Let it be honest. The sea may hide many things, but evidence does not grow simply because a place is dark. Evidence grows when something clear is measured, when something is mapped, when something can be checked by more than one set of eyes. Until then, the ocean base idea remains a possibility without proof, a story fitted to a world that keeps most of its truth below the surface. Now, to keep the tone documentary, it can help to walk through the strongest public pieces again, but in a more deliberate way, like a careful inventory. First, there is testimony. Testimony is not nothing. It is the oldest form of record. It is also vulnerable to error. But when multiple trained people report the same broad shape of an event, testimony becomes a signal that something happened worth examining. In Nimitz, the testimony includes radar operators who noticed repeated tracks and pilots who reported unusual movement and unusual context. In some accounts, the object seemed to accelerate too quickly. In others, it seemed to anticipate. In the ocean base narrative, the most important testimony is the description of the water disturbance, a patch of sea that looked like it was being stirred. It is not enough to claim a base, but it is enough to keep the question open. Second, there are official clips. The public has a few short videos recorded by military systems. They are short. They are compressed. They lack full metadata. They show enough to be intriguing and not enough to be decisive. This is why they are often frustrating. They are evidence that something was recorded. They are not evidence that the thing was alien. And they are certainly not evidence of an underwater facility. Third, there are repeat reports in similar zones. The East Coast training range stories matter because they suggest a persistent unknown, or at least persistent uncertainty. If a region produces repeated unknown reports, it may point to a specific cause. It may also point to persistent misidentification. To tell the difference, you would need consistent reporting and data. Fourth, there are older incidents, like Shag Harbour. Older incidents matter because they show that ocean-linked anomalies were part of human reporting long before modern social media and long before modern infrared. But older cases also tend to lack modern instrumentation. They sit on witness accounts and official response. They remain important as cultural and historical points, but they are rarely able to prove mechanisms. Now, beyond these, there is a huge amount of secondary material. Books, podcasts, anonymous stories, claims of leaked sonar, claims of secret recovery, claims of agreements, claims of bases inside trenches. This material is the main body of the ocean base myth, but the public cannot verify most of it. So in a responsible narrative, it remains background noise. It can be mentioned as culture. It cannot be treated as proof. Now, if we stay within what can be responsibly said, we can also discuss why the ocean is used as a setting, even by ordinary human technology. The ocean offers cover. It offers space. It offers a place to test devices with fewer eyes. Many drones are tested over water. Many missiles are tested over water. Many radar systems are calibrated over water. This means that unusual human technology will often be encountered in maritime zones. So a UAP near the sea might be unknown to the observer, but still part of human development. This is not cynicism. It is simple realism. If something must be hidden during development, the sea is a natural lab. This is another reason the ocean base idea is attractive. It fits not only alien secrecy, but human secrecy. Now think about the kinds of human objects that can confuse observers at sea. Weather balloons drifting at high altitude, radar reflectors, aerostats, small drones, large drones, birds at distance, aircraft seen head-on, satellites, Starlink trains, re-entry debris, flares, fishing lights, bioluminescence. Even algae blooms can glow. Phosphorescent waves can look like moving patterns under a dark sky. To someone unfamiliar, this can look unnatural. Now, combine this with stress. Many military sightings occur during training. Training is busy. Pilots are task-loaded. Operators are watching screens. A strange track appears. Someone calls it out. Attention spikes. Then memory forms under pressure. This is not an insult to witnesses. It is a human factor that exists in every field. Aviation accident analysis takes human factors seriously for this reason. So a careful approach honors the witnesses and still asks for better data. Now we can return to a question that often sits quietly behind the base idea. Why would something choose the ocean? If the unknown is non-human, the ocean offers protection from humans. It also offers an environment where humans are weak. If the unknown is human but classified, the ocean offers testing space. If the unknown is foreign surveillance, the ocean offers a place to operate near fleets. So the ocean can serve many narratives. This is why the ocean base idea is not the only story that fits the pattern. Now, it may help to think about the word base in another way. Some people do not imagine a static building. They imagine a mobile platform, a mothership underwater, a large craft resting on the seabed, a device that can submerge and surface. This version is less like a city and more like a hidden vehicle. It would still have signatures, but it would be harder to map. If it moved, it would not leave a permanent structure. Publicly, we still do not have direct evidence of such a platform, but this is the version that aligns more closely with the evidence pattern. Unknown objects in air, possible interaction with water, then uncertainty. A mobile platform fits uncertainty better than a fixed city. Again, it is a hypothesis, not a proven fact. Now let the story slow further. Consider the sea at different depths. At shallow depth, the water is busy. Waves, currents, sediment, ships, noise. At deep depth, the water is quieter. The temperature is cold. The pressure is high. The environment is stable. A deep base, if it existed, might be safer from storms and from casual detection. It would also be harder to access. And if it were near a trench, it could be near features that already confuse mapping. Trenches and ridges create shadows in sonar. They create complex reflections. So in theory, a deep facility could be harder to detect. But in practice, a deep facility that is active would still interact with its environment. Heat would move. Chemicals would move. Sound would move. And those things could, in principle, be detected. So in the end, the ocean base idea remains in a state of suspended tension. The ocean is a perfect hiding place. The public evidence does not show a hidden base. The public evidence does show repeated mysteries near the sea. This is enough for the imagination. It is not enough for a firm claim. Now, in the last stretch of the night, let the conclusion be a simple set of quiet lines. The strongest evidence in public is a pattern of credible unknowns in maritime contexts. Nimitz is strong because of multiple witnesses and sensors and the ocean detail. Aguadilla is strong because it is an official infrared clip tied to the sea. Even if interpretation remains contested, East Coast reports are strong as a pattern of repeated unknowns in a sensor-dense coastal training zone. Shag Harbour is strong as a historical case with multiple witnesses and official response, though it lacks modern data. Together, these form a story that points toward the ocean as a repeated stage, but none of them provide public proof of an underwater base. So the honest posture is patient. Stay curious, stay careful, ask for better data, and let the ocean remain what it is. A place that hides, a place that reveals only in fragments, a place where a question can float for a long time. There is one more angle that matters, and it is the simplest. The ocean covers most of Earth. If there were any unknown technology operating on this planet, the ocean would be the largest available corridor. If you wanted to move without being seen, you would choose the places with fewer eyes. On land, people live everywhere. In the air, aircraft routes cross constantly. In space, satellites watch many regions, but at sea, especially far from shore, there are long stretches of quiet. So even without a base, the ocean could be a preferred place for transit. This would produce the same pattern. More reports near the sea, more unknowns near naval ranges, more endings of tracks near water. The base idea is one interpretation of that pattern. Transit is another. Now imagine a craft that can operate in air and in water. If it can do both, the sea becomes a shield. A craft could descend into water not to return to a base, but simply to break line of sight. It could move under the surface briefly. It could surface elsewhere. Even a short undersea segment would make tracking very difficult for ordinary systems. This is why so many stories focus on the idea of a seamless transition. Air to sea, sea to air. No splash, no slowdown. If such a capability existed, it would be remarkable. But again, public evidence is not yet strong enough to demonstrate it. We have hints. We have contested interpretations. We have testimony. And we have a long list of missing data. Now consider what makes a report feel strong. Multiple witnesses, multiple sensor types, repeat events, clear documentation, time and location, consistency across independent sources. Most public cases have only some of these. Nimitz has multiple witnesses and multiple sensors, but public data is incomplete. Aguadilla has a public clip, but interpretation depends on range and camera behavior. East Coast reports have repetition, but little full data is released. Shag Harbour has multiple witnesses and official response, but lacks modern instrumentation. So the best public evidence does not form a tight chain. It forms a loose braid, strong enough to feel meaningful, not strong enough to lock a conclusion. Now, if you step outside the popular cases and look at how science approaches the ocean, you find another quiet truth. The ocean is filled with unknowns that have nothing to do with aliens. New species are discovered. Strange sounds are recorded. Geologic vents create chemical plumes. Internal waves move like invisible hills. Large animals migrate and make patterns. Even in the age of satellites, the sea remains a place where surprises are normal. This should not make us dismiss UAP reports. It should make us humble about certainty. If we are humble about the ocean itself, we should also be humble about any dramatic claim that uses the ocean as its stage. Now return to the base idea for the last time and ask what it really offers. It offers a stable explanation for repeated mystery. It offers a hidden source. It offers a reason for why objects appear near fleets. It offers a reason for why objects vanish near water. It offers a reason for why the data is missing, because the data fell into the sea. That is why the base idea is such a strong narrative. It explains the lack of proof as part of the proof. But that is also why we must be careful. A good story can protect itself. It can absorb every contradiction. If there is no base evidence, the base is hidden. If there is no structure, it is deeper. If there is no sonar, the sonar was blocked. If there is no official release, it is classified. In careful work, we avoid claims that cannot be tested. We return to what can be checked. We return to what is public. We return to the simple list. What is directly observed? What is inferred? What is rumor? So if you hold this episode in your mind, hold it as a calm map. On one side, there is genuine uncertainty. There are credible reports. There are cases tied to military sensors. There are patterns near water. On the other side, there is a large leap, a permanent alien base under the sea. That leap is not supported by public proof. Between the two sides is a bridge that has not yet been built. That bridge would be made from better data, better releases, better mapping, better methods. Until then, the ocean will remain a powerful screen for mystery. Not because it is magical, because it is deep, because it is dark, because it is hard, and because most of it is still watched in fragments. Now, let the sea return to its quiet role, a surface that moves, a depth that holds, a horizon that refuses detail, a place where stories gather, and where the truth, when it appears, will likely appear slowly, in measured lines, not in sudden revelation. One last gentle thought, before we let the night close. Even if an underwater base is not supported by public proof, the ocean-linked UAP question can still be worth studying for ordinary reasons. It can reveal weaknesses in sensors. It can reveal gaps in training. It can reveal how quickly people jump from unknown to certain. It can also reveal how often the ocean environment creates strange readings. If we improve our understanding of these things, we improve safety. Pilots avoid collisions. Ships avoid hazards. Systems avoid false alarms. And the line between a true anomaly and a normal artifact becomes clearer. So it is not wasted work to look closely at Nimitz and Aguadilla and East Coast reports. Even if the answer is mundane, the path toward the answer can teach something. And if the answer is not mundane, then careful work is even more important. Because extraordinary claims do not need louder voices. They need cleaner measurement. Now picture the ocean again, not as a myth, but as a real place. A place of storms and calm. A place of ridges and trenches. A place where our species has only recently learned to visit. The sea does not care what we believe. It does not shape itself to our stories. It keeps moving, it keeps hiding, and it keeps waiting. So, if there is anything known operating near it, the ocean will not announce it. It will only provide scenes. A light at a distance, a track on a screen, a wake, a brief clip, a report written after a long shift. And from those fragments, humans will build narratives. Some narratives will be wrong. A few may be close. The only way to know is to keep the language careful and the methods strict. That is the calm discipline this topic deserves. And with that discipline in mind, we can let the sea remain in its proper place, not as proof of a hidden base, but as a vast environment where unknowns can appear, and where the work of separating fact from story is slow. And if you want a simple final checklist, a calm way to hold the topic without slipping into certainty, it can be this. If someone shows you a story about an underwater base, ask, is there a clear chain of custody? Is there more than one sensor? Is there range data? Is there a timestamp? Is there a location? Is there independent confirmation? Is there a map? Is there a sample? If the answer is no, then the claim is not yet evidence. It is only a possibility. If the answer is yes, then the claim deserves careful attention, not excitement. Because true discovery is quiet. It is slow. It is checked. It survives criticism. It does not need to shout. The ocean will not give up its secrets easily, whether those secrets are human or not human. But the ocean also does not keep secrets forever. Currents move, tech improves, maps sharpen, records accumulate, and the truth, whatever it is, tends to leave some trace. Until that trace is clear, the best posture is patient curiosity, a steady interest, a careful eye, a willingness to say, without fear, that we do not know. And perhaps the simplest way to say it is this. The ocean base idea is not supported by public proof, but the ocean-linked mystery is real in the sense that credible people have reported things they could not identify. That is enough to justify careful study, not because it promises aliens, because it promises clarity, better instruments, better methods, better understanding of a hard environment. If the mysteries resolve into balloons and drones and artifacts, we learn. If one mystery remains after everything ordinary is removed, we learn even more. So we let the ocean be both things at once, a place of natural wonder, and a place where our knowledge still has gaps, and we hold the topic with calm hands, not gripping, not declaring, just watching, just listening, just waiting for the next clear piece of data to rise from the dark. And as you settle down, let the final image be simple. A ship on dark water, a wide sky, a radar screen with a single track that does not fit, a pilot searching for a reference point, a coastline sliding by in infrared, a witness watching a light descend. These are small human moments at the edge of a vast world. The ocean will always invite big stories because it is bigger than our sight. But the strongest work is small and careful. One report, one measurement, one verified detail at a time. That is how the unknown becomes known. And if sleep is close, let the questions become lighter, not a demand for answers, just a quiet curiosity, a soft awareness that the world is still large, and that some parts of it, like the deep sea, remain gently out of reach. Another fleet-linked category that often gets mixed into the ocean base idea is the drone swarm problem. In 2019, there were reports and later public discussion about multiple small unmanned systems observed near US Navy ships off the California coast. The key point here is not aliens. The key point is that maritime operating areas can be penetrated by unknown platforms, and that even advanced forces can have moments where they cannot quickly identify what is in their airspace. This matters because it provides a grounded alternative explanation for some ocean-linked mysteries. If a navy can be approached by unconventional drones or surveillance platforms, then some UAP events near fleets could involve human-built systems that are simply not recognized in the moment or not disclosed afterward. It also changes how the ocean base claim should be evaluated. If the goal is to argue for a non-human base, the evidence has to be strong enough to beat not only misidentification and sensor artifacts, but also the reality that modern maritime zones include drones, balloons, decoys, and classified tests. So the best outcome based on public information is a cautious one. Some cases remain unresolved. Some cases likely have ordinary explanations that are not public. And the idea of an underwater alien base is still a step beyond what the evidence can support. If a future case ever does support the base claim, the details would be specific and hard to argue with. A target would be tracked in the air with reliable range data. The entry into the water would be recorded with a clear viewpoint that shows the surface response. Then, an undersea system would continue to track the same object below the surface, with speed and depth estimates that are consistent and repeatable. Finally, the track would repeatedly terminate at the same location, and that location would show a measurable anomaly when mapped. Without that chain, the honest stance is to treat the ocean as the end of our observation, not as proof of a hidden city. The strongest public evidence is still a set of events and outcomes, not a revealed facility. A radar track that did not match expectations, a pilot report that did not resolve, a thermal clip that remains debated, a historical incident that ended in a search, and a modern maritime environment where unknown platforms, including drones, are a real and present issue. So the ocean remains what it has always been in this topic, a place where evidence often stops, a place where stories begin, and a place where, if something truly unusual exists, it will only become clear when the data becomes clear. Until then, the most responsible outcome is careful uncertainty, backed by dates, locations, sensors, and what was actually observed. This was a quiet archive story, where the story ends, sleep begins,